Hey, Andy.
Hey, Dylan.
Who's that guy in the corner over there?
What?
Hello? Strange man who's never been here before?
Uh, uh, Dylan, why is he staring at us?
Why is he wearing Lightning McQueen pajamas?
Oh, God. Dylan, he keeps saying ka-chow.
I don't know why he's not talking to us yet. This feels like this bit is going on too long.
Dylan,
Oh, all right. Restart it. Restart it.
I
no
thought I
way.
thought that was part of the bit that you just weren't going to
no,
talk
dude,
to
I
us.
was completely lost. I was like, "Who is that man?"
I think we leave all this in. I think that's a great intro.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Welcome back to Loki episode 2. If you didn't see the first one, that's okay. This is not a narrative. What's up,
What
guys?
is it?
Strange man that didn't introduce himself before. Who are you?
I'm Brian.
Hey, Brian. How's it going?
I
Are
like
you?
Lightning McQueen.
That's true. That's true. You're the Brian referenced previously who loves the Cars trilogy.
Be a famed Brian. And I'm Andy,
Yeah, you've been here before. No one cares.
back again with my white vans.
Unfortunately. Okay, same drill as last time. I'm going to run through the things and then we'll talk about it as we go. Okay, so episode starts with TVA agent C20 and her squad pulling up to a Ren fair, I think in Oklahoma in 1985, after they detect a variance energy event. While they're there, the evil Loki possesses Agent C20, and the two of them murder her entire squad brutally with knives before she kidnaps C20 and runs away through a portal. And
Well,
then
we don't know it's a she yet.
oh, oops, spoilers. I've just
Oh,
spoiled the reveal at the end of
Dylan.
the episode. Yes, we
Wow.
don't know that yet. Hooded,
Well, some
hooded,
people might
mysterious
not watch
Loki.
the episode and like listening to your commentary. I just gotta throw that out there.
Those people would be insane, and you are welcome here. Welcome. That's why this is a fever dream. So yeah, go through the portal, and that's where our episode kicks off. After that, we're with Loki, our normal Loki variant, in a meeting with the TVA, as they're about to go on a mission to see what the damage was at that Ren Fair ambush, I guess. And he, does his Loki thing where he shows up and stalls for time to let the other evil Loki get away because he thinks that he can use that bargaining power to get a meeting with the timekeepers, which is, of course, absolutely not going to happen because we don't even know if they're real.
True.
I think they're real for the sake of it.
You do? Okay, we can get into that in a little bit once I'm done recapping this first little part. No, I guess that is the first little part, really. So he stalls for time. Mobius figures it out right away, yells at him, and then they prune the timeline and they go back to the TVA. So there was a lot of interesting little time travel mechanic stuff they explained during this part. They finally explained how the reset charges work, which I think actually leads to an issue later on in the episode that I'll discuss when we get there. But basically, they work by just eliminating the elements from the timeline that shouldn't be there, and everything else stays. They don't actually disintegrate everything, which is weird. Like,
Yeah, because wouldn't that timeline still exist?
right, and in the event, like at the beginning of episode 1, they arrest our main Loki in this show, so and then put off a reset charge. So does that timeline continue without a Loki now, right? I mean, what does that even mean? Does the reset charge add a Loki back to the world? It's
I don't know.
not really clear how that makes any sense at all. And they give us other little bits of trivia here and there. Loki's talking with Miss Minutes, quizzing him on TVA etiquette and stuff, which was a good scene.
Good scene. Good scene.
Yeah. We get the first reference to the Jet Ski magazine, which is clearly crucial to Mobius. It's his main
There's
character pillar.
100% gonna be within the next 2 episodes. Loki and Mobius just riding up to a scene with two jet skis looking like badasses.
Dude.
And Mobius is gonna have the biggest freaking smile on his face.
I
You're
want
just gonna have a
I want
tear.
Loki riding on the back of Mobius's jet ski.
Yeah.
Loki doesn't get his own. He has to
That
ride
would be
with Mobius.
perfect.
All right, fine.
So they're at the Ren Fair. Mobius yells at him. He goes back. There's a whole meeting with Ravonna Renslayer and Mobius where they're discussing Loki, and they have some of the most on-the-nose dialogue ever about Mobius loving broken things. And I was like, okay, you could have, slowed down and tried a little bit harder there, but that's okay. We need to keep moving. And at this point, we get to, I think, the real first discussion point, which is Loki looking through all the TVA case files on the alternate killer version of Loki that they're hunting. And there's a couple interesting things in there, but I think the main one is that they actually do spoil not just the reveal at the end of the episode, but they tell you her name in that document. They
I
say
didn't catch that.
no one did until after the fact, and then some dude on Reddit with too much time zoomed and enhanced 8 times. Excuse me, zoomed and enhanced 8 times, and you can see that the Loki variant is labeled as Sylvie Laufey Dotir in the files. So at least at some point they knew that there was a female Loki variant named Sylvie running around out there, even if they didn't know it was the killer. But yes, her name is Sylvie. And
So I do have a question about that.
okay.
So we know the proper timeline is Loki's a boy.
Well,
How in the no? Don't say well, because it is.
True.
In the appropriate proper timeline, Loki is a boy. How in the fuck does the TVA let a baby get away?
okay, so one. Loki is a shapeshifter. He
Okay.
can be a boy, he can be a girl. Doesn't really matter.
2021.
His file,
Well-
when he got arrested by the TVA, listed him as gender fluid for a good reason, because he is literally a shapeshifter. He can be whatever gender he wants. We see him be a girl multiple times in the movies. So we don't know how either of those Loki variants were born as dudes or ladies or
Well, they were hatched as an egg.
right. According to
We
your
are just-
headcanon, we have not had this confirmed by Kevin Feige.
It's already been discussed
By who?
by me.
Okay, sure. That works. And the second thing is, regardless of the fact that Loki is a shapeshifter, it's fucking weird that her name is Sylvie.
Yeah.
That's not a name that is associated with Loki as a character. And it's still a good question, because it brings back around the question of, is the TVA full of fucking shit? Is there actually one timeline? Or are there other timelines out there and they're just lying to our faces and it's not true at all? Because I still think that's a very valid question.
Yeah. I agree that I believe that they're full of shit
What do you think, Brian?
at this moment.
You seem to imply earlier that you believed. Do you believe that they're telling the complete
Well-
truth, or just that the timekeepers are real?
No, I believe that the Lizard Kings, the 3 Lizard Kings that they speak of, are real persons, or not persons, but entities.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's full of shit.
Okay. Yeah, because there's quite a few things that don't add up when you start to look too closely, and this Sylvie character is potentially one of them. But there is
Well,
also
she
the
also-
fact. Well, I'll hold off on that. No, actually, no. It happens at the beginning of the episode. I can talk about it. Sylvie seems to have some sort of either
Idea.
possession or mind control power. And
Yeah.
that is not something we've ever seen Loki do, like, on his own. He mind controlled people when he had the Mind Stone in Avengers, but with just
Yeah,
his
like-
own power, we never have seen Loki do that at all. And he seems pretty confused when he sees Sylvie do it. So it's entirely possible, I think, that this Sylvie character is someone who possessed a Loki variant in another timeline. And this could explain both of those things. Like, it's a female character who magically possessed the body of a Loki and decided to rebrand as a female Loki, I guess. Still named Sylvie, or maybe that was a chosen name.
That's wild, but very plausible.
I think it's something that we should consider.
Well, because we know he's confused about the power, because he asks her, "Is she dead?"
Right.
He's clearly never seen the power. And when I saw it, I felt that whole fight scene, to me, between Sylvie and Loki, and I might be jumping ahead of where you want to be
A little bit, but that's okay.
It seemed very Scarlet Witch-esque, fighting the Avengers.
How
Like-
so?
Well, I mean, the whole touching their forehead, them going into a trance.
Well, it wasn't just forehead.
So you mean specifically the people she's possessing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That scene like just reminded me of when Scarlet Witch was fighting the Avengers.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I think the similarity only goes as far as both those characters were using magic in those fights. I don't think there's anything too much more to that in terms of the comparison.
No. I'm just saying it reminded me. It seemed, very similar, like style of fight, style of, kind of creeping in the shadows and taking advantage of, unknowing prey.
Okay, so after this point, Loki's digging through all those files, and he gets bored and goes to some TVA librarian clerk, whatever, and tries to get files on the timekeepers in the beginning of the universe and all that stuff, and
Access denied.
is told absolutely not, which, again, just further planting red flags in the path of, like, something is up with these guys. Whether they're fake, or they're not who they say they are, or they're just fucking evil, something is wrong here, that they're hiding all this information. And then he figures out that the evil Loki variant is hiding out in apocalypses, because nothing they do there will matter, because everyone who is affected by their actions dies immediately after, which stops the timeline from branching in any way, which is fucking genius, by the way. I love that. So
I also
smart.
really enjoyed it. I just don't get how they pinpointed the perfect exact apocalypse that this variant would obviously be in.
Okay, we can get
20
into that,
years or
because they
so.
do say it, but it's kind of confusing and brief.
Brian, clearly to just keep the plot moving.
It's not true. There is a reason, and it's a well-planted clue, although an obvious one. But we'll get there in a second. So Loki figures this out. He goes to Mobius and pisses all over his salad, which just was making me sad, the whole scene. I was like, poor Mobius. He's just trying to eat a salad and think about a jet ski, and Loki's pouring salted pepper all over it and then dumping, like, milk or whatever that he stole from Casey behind him. I don't know what he was doing, but Casey's lunch was ruined. Mobius's lunch was ruined. No one was having a good time in the cafeteria. It was unfortunate. That's just what he's a mischievous little scamp. That's just what happens when Loki's around.
Absolutely.
It was such a good diagram, though. Like, it really
It was.
pretty well.
It did. Like, in terms of being well written, it's a great metaphor because it makes perfect sense. But when you're literally looking at it, like, they aren't actually showing the salt dissolve on the salad. So visually, it doesn't work very well. But when you think about it conceptually, it works great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then Loki convinces Mobius that he's right, or at least that he should trust him enough to confirm that he's right, and they go to Pompeii right before the volcano explodes. Is it Mount Vesuvius that killed Pompeii?
Yeah, I think so.
Right before Vesuvius erupts, and Loki frees a bunch of goats, which is more horn references. They clearly fucking love the horns.
Loki, you gotta be low key.
I love when they get there, or like when it first cuts to them there and they're having that whispered conversation in the corner and Loki's like giddy as hell and Mobius is like, this is not appropriate bedside manner. All of these people are about to die and you're laughing in the corner. We shouldn't be doing this. It doesn't feel right. It was very Loki and it was very good. And obviously he's then proven correct that nothing you do right before an apocalypse can possibly cause a branch timeline. And so they go back to the TVA, and at this point, they now have to narrow down which apocalypse in history they think that the evil Loki is hiding in, because it could be any apocalypse, theoretically, like you said. But the way they narrow it down is Mobius remembers from the first scene we meet Mobius in that church, the first evil Loki incident, there's the little kid who he talks to, and the little kid has like the blue chewing gum candy thing,
Yeah.
and Mobius took that with him. And so they go and they grab that gum from the case file, and Mobius is like, we can, the evil Loki left this in the timeline as a gift. If we can find out an apocalypse in time where the evil Loki would have been able to steal this gum from, we'll know that they were there at some point. And so they cross-reference every apocalypse in the world, and they find an apocalypse that happens in Alabama in 2050 in a giant superstore called Roxcart, which is selling that specific bubble gum right before an apocalypse happens. And so that's how they narrow down that specific apocalypse is where Sylvie is hiding.
True, because only that supermarket would sell that candy. No other supermarket would.
No way.
They say it's only on sale from like 2048 to 2054 or something, and in America, and there's only that was the only apocalypse that happened in America at a supermarket at that time.
All right,
I could buy that, and even then, they're still like, they could still have picked this up at any other point in time. Like she might not be here at this apocalypse. She might have just come here briefly and then fucked off to somewhere else, for all we know. So it's still a guess.
But the fact that Mobius, we don't know this for a fact, but he's basically staking his entire career / life on this. Because
Yeah.
the way that the headmaster bitch lady is talking, it sounds like he might get pruned if they fuck up one more time.
He's definitely playing with fire, but for some reason he trusts this Loki enough. In fairness, I think the display that Loki was right about Pompeii and apocalypses in general helped sell Mobius on the fact that this was worth a shot. But it's a bold call to send a full-on attack squad into this supermarket apocalypse. But they do. And at this point, we have now reached the point where this episode is quite possibly my favorite episode of any of the Marvel TV shows so far. Because holy fuck, the score and the atmosphere and the visuals when they cut to this hurricane apocalypse in 2050, it looks so fucking good. And it sounds so good, and the atmosphere they created with all those hurricane shots outside was so good. I was completely into it. I was like, thank fuck, I'm so happy they did this show now. I love this. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on anything revolving around that intro to the supermarket shop, but I don't know. That really stood out to me.
I'm glad you really enjoyed the hurricanes outside and stuff. But until you mentioned that, I just thought it was a dark night and I knew a hurricane was coming, but I really didn't pay any attention to it and was just focused on the scenes ahead.
Fair.
Well, no, I thought it was really good. I liked it.
Yeah. The score in this episode, I talked about it last time, but the person doing the music is just fucking killing it. They just, I don't know, it works for me. Every single one of their little musical cues works. And I think in a way that, like, hasn't, the Marvel scores have always been fine, and there's been some standout moments, but, like, the whole atmosphere backing track for these 2 episodes so far has been so good.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, plot-wise from here, let's see. They're at the Rocks Cart store, which, by the way, the Rocks Cart thing feels like it's probably a reference to Roxxon, which is a company in the comics that does a lot of shady shit. So probably a little reference there, but probably no, not Roxanne, Brian. You've picked the wrong song from the 80s.
Yo, speaking of the wrong thing from the 80s, um, you said Oklahoma earlier, Dylan. It was Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
You're right.
Canton.
You are right. I was wrong.
I didn't want to correct you earlier because I thought I missed a scene before the Wisconsin scene that was in Oklahoma, and I was
No.
lost.
You were correct. I was just thinking of the O from Oshkosh and said the wrong state. So thank you for correcting me roughly 20 minutes later. I still appreciate it.
Yeah,
We had to get it right. We had to get it right before the end of the episode. You're absolutely correct.
You can like cut and skip and.
No,
we
I'm
can
not going to do that. I'm going to leave this right here so that I get
All
my
right.
talking too much later on.
Alright.
So they're in the Rocks Cart store. Loki is split up from Mobius, and he goes with the head TVA military lady. I still don't. Do we have a name for her? I still don't think we have a
No.
name for her. She must have a number or something, but I don't remember her number specifically. We'll figure that out. We'll figure out something to call her eventually. But he goes off with her alone, and they're basically ambushed again and trapped by Sylvie, who possesses her and starts walking Loki around the store, just having a conversation.
She really come around, you know.
Yeah, there's just two Lokis taunting each other, you know? Both of them think they're the superior Loki. One of them certainly has way more of a point than the other one, given that he thinks he's 10 steps ahead, and yet they keep falling into traps over and over again. So, questionable.
You know this variant is better than you, and you can't take it. Mobius.
It's a good setup, and I really liked the line, just rewinding slightly, around that point where Mobius is talking to Loki, and Loki's like, why are you trusting me? And Mobius says, I'll give you two options, and you can believe whichever one you want. Either I actually feel bad for you and care about you, or I'm so desperate that I'm willing to say anything at all just to get you to do what I want you to do to help me out. And I was like, that's a great non-cliche line, because he could have just gone, you know what, Loki, because I really believe in you. But that would have been a bunch of fucking bullshit. The fact that he was like, I don't care what you believe, Loki. Either believe that I'm being a cynical asshole or believe that I actually care. Just do what I want you to do and shut the fuck up. And I was like, ooh, Mobius is he's kind of reaching Loki's levels of manipulative bullshit.
Edgy. He's edgy.
So anyway, back to the plot. Sylvie's fucking yanking Loki's chain, walking around the store, stalling for time as the actual Sylvie in her main body is setting up reset charges all around the store rigged on a wire to go off at the end of a timer.
She left a fallen soldier who's spaced out in the control room.
Right. Yes. Mobius finds C-20, the agent who was kidnapped at the very beginning, locked up in a storage room, and C-20 reveals that she told Sylvie how to get to the timekeepers, presumably how to get to the TVA.
Which is why I think they're real. That line.
Okay, we can have this debate now. I think is a good time as any. Mobius says he's never met them or talked to them at all. And it seems like they're like super classified because like C-20 says, I told them how to get to the timekeepers. But I feel like that just means I told her how to get to the TVA. I don't think she meant like they're in room 397. I think she just meant this is how you use a portal to the TVA. And Ravonna seems to be the only one that's talked to them. And when Mobius asks her what they're doing, she acts suspicious as fuck, dude. She's like, oh yeah, they're super involved in this case. They're watching every aspect of it. They're super involved. When Loki asks Mobius what they're doing, he's like, oh yeah, they're unraveling the end of time. They're trying to figure out how it all ends. I'm like, what do you mean figure out how it all ends? You're the fucking timekeeper. Shouldn't you have already figured this out? None of this is making any goddamn sense, bitch.
Yeah, that is a good point. That does leave a lot of questions unsolved. But if you think about it, Mobius is kind of like a middle manager type of deal. Like
I
he doesn't
agree.
seem that high up there.
I
So for
agree.
him not
Well,
to
he's
have met,
higher than C20.
That I also agree with.
yeah, but maybe Mobius also knows how to reach them, but just hasn't actually met them, you know? Like I know how to get to the fucking White House. I just haven't, you know?
This is a great metaphor, and I can't argue with this whatsoever. I'm just getting big Wizard of Oz vibes. There's something going on with the man behind the curtain, and it's not quite right. Maybe they exist, but I don't think they're these all-powerful special beings that they would like us to think they are. I think there's something sneaky going on.
Do you think if they were real, you think Doctor Strange would know about them?
No. And I'll tell you why I don't think Doctor Strange has any idea about the TVA. Because in Infinity War, he goes forward and views 14 million whatever alternate futures. And if he knew that the TVA was just going to prune every bad timeline, there would be absolutely no fucking point in him doing that whatsoever.
Okay.
Very true.
And as well, like, he has a lot of powers, and he has the Time Stone. But given that they've established that the TVA sort of operates outside of time and outside of the reach of the Infinity Stones, I think they're on a whole nother level than to anything anyone on Earth knows about. Moving on with the plot of the episode, I guess. Loki and Sylvie have their little possession fight that Andy referenced earlier, where she's possessing fucking Frank or Albert, whatever that guy's name was, and then the bigger guy, and just punching each other around. And eventually time runs out, and the charge is set off, and all of the reset charge, it seemed like the plan was Sylvie was going to lure all these big TVA agents out there and then set off the reset charges to prune all of the TVA agents. But what actually happens is all of the reset charges drop through a bunch of time portals and just vanish into the sacred timeline somewhere. And the sacred timeline gets bombed, I guess, is what we're told from that TVA control room. But I don't understand what the fuck that means. Because
Do you think it went back to all of the apocalypses that happened?
Well, so here's
Each
the
dropped
thing.
into their own
I feel
single-
like it doesn't matter because the reset charges they established earlier in the episode only prune what isn't supposed to be there. So if you just drop it on the timeline, that's all stuff that's already supposed to be there, right? The reset charge should just do nothing.
Yeah. But it doesn't look like that.
Right. It looks like it caused 18 million simultaneous branches in the timeline, which I'm a little bit confused about. But maybe they'll explain exactly where she dropped them at some point. Maybe it makes sense. I don't know.
It's just gonna be some bullshit. Because you remember that line where Loki said, "We're like, I learned from a very, very young age that no bad person is truly bad and no good person is truly good." That bullshit. It's just gonna be Sylvie trying to do her own like good in her mind thing, where she's trying to reset some things that bad that happened to her, and it's gonna be like, oh wow, Sylvie, that's great, but it's still bad in the grand scheme of things.
So
That's what it's gonna be.
here's the interesting thing. I think you're pretty much right there, but I don't think that what she's doing is going to be that bad. I think that what she's trying to do, based on what we've now seen, that this plan was to create a fuck ton of branches in the timeline. I think she's just trying to regrow the multiverse, basically. She wants a bunch of branch timelines to be created, so many that the TVA can't possibly clip them all. So that there are tons of alternate branching timelines out there that also exist, sort of restoring free will to the universe. Because Loki even points out in the episode what we pointed out last week, which was that free will doesn't really exist under the current rules. If you believe what the TVA says, they choose the only acceptable action in every single instance for every single person in the universe. So I think her plan is just to regrow the multiverse by creating too many branches for the TVA to ever possibly deal with, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think the bad thing is probably going to be the fact that she keeps going around fucking murdering people. I think that's probably going to be the frowned upon part. But
Murder is bad.
But I don't think her actual overall goal is going to be that bad. Sort of like, in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the Flag Smashers group's goal was to have, like, refugee voices listened to and, like, refugee camps properly stocked with food and stuff. Like, her goal was noble in that show, but she was fucking murdering people along the way, and so therefore she had to be stopped because you can't do that. And so I think it's going to be pretty similar here. For the villain from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, was she ginger?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there you go.
That's why she had to be stopped? This fucking ginger bitch. She's running around, she's punching people, and she's ginger. We just can't be having that. You can't be allowed to do this. So the sacred timeline gets bombed. Bunch of branches are created. Sylvie reveals herself to be a female Loki to our main Loki, which I was shocked at how early. I don't know if people who watched the videos picked up on it, but I feel like I dropped enough hints to tell everyone that I knew that Lady Loki was the bad guy from the go. But I thought that was going to be like a big reveal later in the show. Episode 2, it's all out in the open. That's all I've got. I don't know anything else. So I was happy with that. I was like, oh, good. I didn't know the twist. It was obvious for a reason. And so they reveal that, and then she vanishes through a doorway in time, and Loki follows her through that doorway right as Mobius shows up. So Mobius is obviously going to think that Loki did all of this fucked up shit and escaped because he just saw Loki walk through a portal right after the timeline got bombed. It makes sense.
Do you think that TVA member that got possessed by female Loki, Sylvie, do you think she'll tell Mobius that she got possessed by Sylvie, or do you think she doesn't remember?
It's a really good question. I don't know, because when we meet C20 locked up in that storage room, she seems super freaked out, but we don't get any indication as to whether she remembers being possessed or just remembers being, like, waking up tied up in some strange storage room.
I just think she told her because
yeah.
she got possessed.
So it's totally possible that, like, when you get possessed, you black out and you don't remember any of it, or maybe you remember every second of it. I don't know. I'm sure we'll get that right at the start of next episode, like you said, but yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of the events of the episode is our Loki running away through that door to join evil Loki. So we're just on to overall thoughts now. What do you guys got?
I was gonna say how you called it with the female Loki.
Yeah, I was dropping hints hard. I was like, this is the answer.
I was also gonna say that I was right about Mobius constantly just being a step ahead of Loki, even though he thinks he's a step ahead.
Is he a step ahead though?
Mobius?
Yeah,
I mean, he just watched Loki go into the fucking nether.
Yeah, but that wasn't Loki. That wasn't Loki's. He has no idea what's going on.
I mean,
there's no way he's a step ahead of anybody. He's going with the flow.
You say that, but Loki pieced together a lot of the information to get him where they got in this episode.
Yeah. But keeping Loki, I guess, in line and not, like, fucking up the TVA, Mobius is winning that.
I mean, Loki just got away. I don't know if he's winning.
Again, not by his own doing. He got away because there's a door open.
I know, but he still got away.
His counterpart opened.
He still got away. That's all I'm saying.
I think the counterpart Lady Loki, knows the truth about the TVA.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely think that's it. Maybe she doesn't know the whole truth because it seems like she's going to kill the timekeepers. That's what I get from the end of the episode.
Oh, so they do exist.
I think she thinks they exist. I think that portal they step through at the end of the episode is going to lead back to the TVA offices. I think we're going to see both Lokis fighting a bunch of TVA agents to open up that next episode as they fight their way to try to get to the timekeepers.
Why don't the Infinity Stones work at the TVA?
I think it's just because Infinity Stones don't work outside of their native universe. That's kind of how it works in the comics.
Okay.
If you take an Infinity Stone from one universe and put it into another, it's just completely useless. So I think the TVA probably just exists like outside of time and space, and therefore none of them are usable.
That makes sense then. Side note.
Okay.
I think you're correct with the multiverse thing. That's why Sylvie is doing all of this.
Mhm.
But if she's not, well, no, okay. So I think she is 100%. But I think at some point, Loki and Sylvie also team up to try and save Loki's mom. It's not gonna work, but I think they try.
You think they want to like create a branch timeline where Frigga doesn't die in Thor 2 or whatever?
Yeah, because it's been a big story.
Yeah, they did focus on that. That would be interesting.
Would be fun.
It would be. They time travel back to Thor Dark World again. They just did it in Endgame, and now they do it again in
Well,
Loki.
they mentioned Ragnarok.
They did mention Ragnarok, yeah. I would I would like if like every time travel comes up in the MCU going forward, for some reason they always have to go back to Thor 2. And everyone's like, "Oh dude, I'm so fucking sick of this movie. Stop making me time travel back to Thor 2. I fucking hate it." And they just always have to go back there.
The root of all evil.
Yes.
Thor 2 is definitely the root of all evil.
It's where every problem in the MCU stemmed from. Without Thor 2, nothing bad would have happened.
Well, Sylvie is, helping the Spider-Man.
Yep. For sure.
What is
She's
the word I'm looking for?
variant multi. Oh yeah, just like the plot of No Way Home.
But yeah, the variants in the multiverse.
Yeah.
The multiple Spider-Man.
Absolutely. That's part of why I think that's her goal. I mean, it also makes sense that it's her goal, and it's also why I think she's gonna succeed, at least in some fashion. I mean, she might have already fucking succeeded. I don't know. Maybe that one bombing of the Sacred Timeline is enough.
Yeah.
But I think because What If is coming out right after this, which is a multiverse show all about what if variant timelines, there sort of has to be a multiverse by the end. So either the TVA is lying, or they're telling the truth and they're going to win, and the multiverse is going to be back by the end of the show, which I think makes a lot of sense. All right. Anything else? Or do we think we're good?
I'm good.
Brian, you good?
Yeah.
How you feeling about the lack of Kachow so far?
It's not right for this type of setting. I'm a little worried that there haven't been any OWs at all, but it's coming.
Do you think do jet skis in the Cars universe have mouths and sentience?
Yeah.
Do you think that this movie could end with Mobius turning into a sentient jet ski in the Cars universe and settling down in Radiator Springs?
No, because Mobius is already Lightning McQueen.
This is all about time travel, Brian. Anything can happen.
Yeah, but then Lightning McQueen would disappear and then the Cars trilogy would never exist.
Fuck.
It would not go with the proper timeline.
That's not how time travel works in the Marvel universe, though. You just create a branch timeline. You don't erase anything from existence. We would still have Cars, but there would be some poor universe out there where Cars never existed.
So that universe just shouldn't exist.
Yeah. It's one of the dark timelines, like the Ancient One talks about in Endgame, where she's like, oh, if you remove an Infinity Stone, it creates like a dark timeline. If you remove the Cars trilogy, it also creates a dark timeline.
Facts.
Where the Earth is doomed to fall.
Fitting.
All right. Andy.
All right. Well, cue the